Hello everyone, this is Sammy. Now in today's video, I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step guide on how to set up a fresh Ubuntu server. Probably you got your Ubuntu server from AWS or you got it from GCP or any cloud service provider. I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step guide on how to set it up. See you right after the intro. Alright people, welcome back. I'm super excited, back again recording. Alright, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, turn on the post notification bell, and if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. Alright, so with that said, let's dive straight into the video. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be logging in to my remote Ubuntu server that I got from AWS. It's actually an AWS EC2 running on Ubuntu 2004. So I'm going to be connecting via SSH, and I'm going to be passing the flag I to specify the identity file I'm going to be using, and that is my admin key. The default user is actually Ubuntu, but whilst you are actually setting up your EC2 instance, you have the privilege to change the username. But like I said, I tried as much as possible to keep this video a little bit beginner friendly. So let's assume you left it at Ubuntu. Now the IP address, once your EC2 server is up, you are going to be seeing it there on your AWS account that this is the IP address to that particular EC2 server, right? So I got it on my clipboard, so I'm just going to be pasting it here. Great. So with that said, I'm just going to press enter to connect and wait for it to connect, and voila, you can see I am in my Ubuntu server. So I'm just going to clear screen because I like having a clean terminal. Now the first thing you would want to do is to actually update your package mirrors. And now how do you do that? You do that with sudo apt update. Now you could also decide to go with sudo apt-get. You're still going to be getting the same output, but let's go with sudo apt update. And once we do this, it's going to update all our package mirrors, and as you can see, it's going to be updating it. This is an important step. So once you do this, it's done. We're going to be going to the next step, and which is to upgrade it. Now I'm going to be showing you a much more better way to upgrade. Instead of you doing sudo apt upgrade, what we are going to be doing in this case now is we are going to be doing sudo apt dist upgrade, which is distribution upgrade. Now the difference, so just say sudo dist upgrade. Now the difference between this and this is this: if you are doing sudo apt upgrade, it will try to upgrade your available repositories to the recent updates. If it can't, for all your packages that are currently available on this particular Ubuntu server, now if it can't, it's going to ignore it. Now I prefer to use dist upgrade because I want to upgrade my entire Ubuntu distribution. So it's using dist upgrade. Now once it's tried to update a particular package and it could not update it, is automatically going to remove it. So I don't want to be having any package that is not upgraded still like coming with the default setting. Now if you can't upgrade, then just don't be on the server at all. So that's the difference between using that using dist upgrade and upgrade. So I'm going to be upgrading that, pressing yes to continue. Now we're going to wait for this to complete. It's on 68%, 74, 83, and okay, we're just going to wait for it to complete. All right, whilst you are doing this, please try to have a stable internet connection, please. Very important, because this is actually going to be via your network, right? So you just have to have a stable internet. Okay, all right, this is going to take a while. So what was going to happen now is I am going to pause the recording, and then I'll come back to the recording once it's done. Okay, you're almost there. Now, this is one of the reasons why I said I prefer using this upgrade. Now, if you look here, you can see it says removing obsolete conf file. This removing obsolete conf file. This, if you were using just apt upgrade, either using apt-get or apt, if you're just using the upgrade, it's not going to do all this stuff, and as such you're still going to be having some security patches. Now it's best to just do a full distribution upgrade. So if it can upgrade it to the latest one, it's going to be removing it, so you don't have unnecessary files on your server, because your server is an important aspect. It's very, very sensitive. You need to pay close attention to it. So we are on 99%. Come on, we are on 99%. So let's just wait for it to complete. All right, so it's done. So as you can see, it's done upgrading everything, and you can see all the process it has to go through. It's a whole lot. You can see setting up, removing. You see there's some part said removing obsolete conf file. So this is the advantage of using the dist upgrade, because it just does a clean job for you. Okay, so on my own end here, it took some time. Now the amount of time it's going to take you to do a full upgrade is actually based on your internet speed. Actually, for you it might be fast, for you it might be slower, depending. All right, so once that is done, I'm just going to clear the terminal, because then again, I love having a clear terminal. So remember, I am logged in as the default Ubuntu user. That is because that is the user account that you have to AWS provides you by default. So now, one thing I like doing, and I would also advise you to do, is this: that once you've ensure that your server is updated and upgraded, the next thing you do is to create a user account. You assume that the default user account that came with the server is the admin account, although on major servers or major cloud providers like AWS, now they already disable root login, so you don't really have much headache on that aspect. But once you are in and you've updated and upgraded, the next thing for you is to create another user account and assign admin privileges to that user account. So how do you do that? So you use the add user command, and then you just have to provide the name of the user in which you want to add to the system. So remember, the name of this person now is, I'm logging in, is as Ubuntu. So it is assumed that it is the Ubuntu user that is creating this new user now. So the user I want to create now, let's say I want to create Kings as the user. Oh, now I have to repeat that bit. This, great. Now you can see, now I just have to add a password for this particular user. So let's say this is the password. You can leave this blank. Is this information correct? Yes, and voila, now this particular user account is created. Now the next thing you want to do, because you are going to be using this particular user to log in, right? You're going to be using this particular user to log in. So the next thing you want to do is to actually add this particular user to the sudo group. Add this particular user that you've just created to this sudo group, so that you can use this sudo command, right? So that is if you want. Remember, I said this is the user account I would now be using to log into the server, not this Ubuntu default user that came in with, right? And because I can also as well remove this user from the sudo group, whichever one I want to. Okay, great. So now how do I add this user to the sudo group? So I'll do that with user mod, then use the A and G flag, then the group I want to add is the sudo. Now the user I want to add to it is what? Kings. I don't know why it's a little bit slow. So it is user mod and A and G the group. Basically the A flag is to append, the G is the group, and I want to, this is the group sudo, and I am pending these kings. In other words, I am adding these kings to the sudo group. Now great, I also have to do this using sudo. Don't know why I often forget that. Great, and that is done. So one way we could actually verify if it's, one way I do verify if, okay, this user now has this user now belongs to the sudo group, is I will switch to this user called Kings. I'll provide the password I created for him, and you can see I am now logged in. You can see I am now logged in as Kings, right? So I could just go to the user's home directory. Great. So now that I am in the home directory, let's try to open a file. So let's say I want to open the SSH file first of all. So let's say I just want to I want to open the SSH config file. We're going to be coming here later. So let's say I want to open this using sudo. So let's see what will happen. So entering the password. Great, it's open. So yes, so let's see if I can make an edit on the file. Can I save? Yes, I can save. So yes, means that this particular guy is added to the sudo group. So now, okay, so since I can edit the file, means that this particular user is part of the sudo group, meaning that this particular user can now use the sudo command, which is great. All right, so now let's move on. Now the next thing you now want to also do is to also secure your Ubuntu server by setting up a firewall. Now by default, your Ubuntu server, starting from Ubuntu 18.04 to the latest, now I think the latest we have here is that is out now is Ubuntu 24.04, which I have running on my local system. Mind you, where I am currently now is on the remote server. However, I have Ubuntu 20.04 on my local system. Great. So once this is done, now I have to now set up a firewall. Now firewall, what is firewall? Kind of adding a layer of security, right? So now how will I go about that? Now by default, you're from Ubuntu 18.04 down to the latest Ubuntu comes in with UFW. You don't need to install it. However, if you don't have it installed, you could actually install it using the sudo apt install UFW again. But then let's see if we already have it installed. Now remember, I didn't do anything. You have been seeing, I've been sharing my screen since, you can see. So let's see if we have this installed. How can we know if it's installed? All right, so I'll do sudo apt list. Now this list is going to list all the packages. Now remember, I am only concerned about the UFW, so I'm going to pipe that to grep, and then let's press enter to see, and then it's going to, now you can see it's saying UFW installed, and it's showing you that it is automatic. Now if you run this particular command on your server and you don't see this guy here, all you just have to do is to come in here, change this to something like this, and say sudo install UFW, and that is going to install UFW on your server. All right, great. So now that UFW is installed on my server, the next thing I want to do is to check if it is active. Again, by default UFW is installed, but it is not enabled. So how do I get to know that? So I can also do sudo UFW status, and as you can see, it's saying status is inactive. Remember, I am logged in as Kings. So let's take this thing gently. So what I'm going to do now, because this King is also part of the sudo group, means that I could actually do the same stuff either on the Ubuntu user or on this new user called Kings, right? So I want to now set up this particular guy, which is the UFW. So now how will I do that? Now what I mostly do for all of my servers is I deny all incoming, enable all outgoing, and then I start enabling the ports that I want for connection manually. So I enable port 80 to allow HTTP unsecured connection, port 443 to allow HTTPS, which is the secured HTTP connection. Then I also allow SSH, which is port 22. Now again, the ports in which you allow depends on the service that you want to expose to the public, you want to expose to the internet. Now if you are doing this for a particular organization, now some organizations that I have been opportunity to work with, they have their SSH port listing on another port. By default SSH listings on 22, but some organizations that I've worked with, they moved it to another port, which is also a nice layer of security, and I will also show you how to do that. So but first let's see our current port, right? So let's say you want to check the current ports in which your SSH is listening on. Now you look at your SSH config. I also have to do this with sudo. Now let's search for port. Great. Now you can see by default it's port 22, so you don't even need to uncomment this. By default it is port 22, but let's say the organization that you're working with doesn't want to use port 22 as their default port, wants to use another port. So what you have to do is to come to this particular file, press I to enter inserting mode, go down to where you have the ports, and then all you just have to do is change the port. Whilst we are here, I also want to activate something, which is this particular guy here. It says password authentication. Now I want to remove this and disable password authentication to only allow key-based authentication. So if someone cannot just let's say because you already know the IP address and you already know the user account, now you could not come and start trying to just decide to log in without a key and then it's going to be asking you for a password. No, if you put it as yes, if you try to do something like SSH user at server, if you don't provide a key file, it's going to try to allow a password authentication, like prompting you to enter your password, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to say password authentication no. Now with that done, what I now need to do, remember the port is 22, right? So I'll clear my screen again. So the port is 22, so what I'll do is this sudo UFW. Now I'm going to be using a default setting. Now you might ask, okay Sammy, how do you know this stuff? Well, you could actually look at the man page for UFW, the manual pages for the UFW, and then just read about all these stuffs. You can read about this stuff, and then you know how I just get to know this stuff. Now, like you can see now, this is default, allowed, stuff like that. Then it's just read down. You're going to learn a whole lot. But then I've been doing this stuff for quite some time now, so I kind of know my way around the Linux server, right? So the sudo UFW defaults, Now in this default, you have allow, you have deny, you have ignore, and then you also have routes. I think here I will just quickly confirm, going back to this man page here. Great. Right, so exactly, so you see I have allowed, deny, okay, yeah, I have allowed, deny, reject. Now in all this, I can only pass any of these three. If I'm using the allow, I can either say allow incoming, allow outgoing, or allow routed. If you're using deny, stuff like that. Okay, great. So I say sudo UFW default allow. Now I'm going to be allowing outgoing connections, right? I'm going to be allowing outgoing from this particular server. So I'm going to say allow outgoing. Come on. Great. Now I have allowed outgoing. Now I'm just going to be changing this to deny. Let's change this to deny. So I say deny incoming. So now I'm automatically allowing outgoing connection from this particular server to the public or to anywhere, but from the outside world to this particular server, I am denying everything. Hold on, just hold on. So now I have added the deny. Now I'm not going to be manually enabling the ports I want to open. Now this is best practice because you just don't want all ports opened and accepting connection. Only ports that you are running services on that you should expose. Now if you want to expose it to the internet, you expose. If you want to keep it local, you keep it local on your system. Great. All right, so now that I have denied incoming, now I need to start adding them manually. So what I'll do, I say sudo UFW allow. Now I'll have to now provide the port I want to open. So I can put port 80. I can just put port 80 like this to allow port 80, or you can also decide to put in the protocol like this, port 80 / HTTP, right? So let's say you don't know the protocol that they are running on, you just want to use the ports, you can go with this. Or let's say you also know the protocol but you don't know the port. So let's say you do something like allow HTTPS. Now what it's going to do now is, if you do something like this, it's actually going to look at your Etsy services, because it's a registry that looks at where known protocols, looks at the protocols and the ports in which they are mapped on. So if you do something like this now, it's also going to, you see both of them work. Now how do you know, okay, which particular one is how do you know which particular one is active, right? Like is actually running. Before you can know the one that is active, you actually have to enable this. Now mind you, I have denied what are they calling it, I have denied incoming. That means I've denied outward connection to this particular server, and I have only enabled 80 and 443. Now I am currently logged in via SSH, which is port 22. Now if I move ahead to go and enable this, number one, I might automatically get disconnected, or I would still stay, but I don't like taking chances. So before I enable it, before I enable the UFW, I also want to enable the SSH port. So I'll come back here and change this to port 22. Now since port 22 is enabled, now what I will now do is to now enable the UFW. So I'll do sudo UFW enable, then yes. Now you can see Firewall is active and enabled on system startup. Right now, I'm also going to be showing you how to force restart this stuff so it's automatically up. Great. So now I can now do something like this: sudo UFW status. Now you can see it's saying port 80, which is HTTP, is open. Port 443, which is HTTPS that we typed in here, is open. Now how did it know? Because it checked the service directory and saw that okay, HTTPS is mapped to 443, so it picked this up. Now it also enabled port 22. It also enabled port 443 TCP and stuff like that. This is for IPv6 and this is for IPv4. All right, so now I have what are you calling it, 80, 443 and 22 open. Now I can decide to log out and then log in. Now once I have my firewall active, the next thing I also want to do now is to create a key pair for this particular user that I am logged in as, which is King. So currently now this guy, I can only log in with my Ubuntu user and then switch right from my Ubuntu user to the Kings, to this user called Kings. Right now what I want to do is to directly log in as King. So I'm still going to be leaving this place open, this terminal open, come here, spin up my Ubuntu 2404 running on my local system here. Now what I want to do now is to use SSH Keygen to generate a key. Now I want to use the T flag to specify the type of key I want to use. By default I want to use the RSA key, and I also want to specify the file that this should be created. Let's say the file name should be king's key. Now what is going to happen now is that this particular guy is going to be creating a public and private key for this that matches, right? So now this passphrase, you can decide to leave it empty, but then again you can also add a passphrase like a password kind of thing on top of the key. So even when you are using the key to log in, if a particular person doesn't know the passphrase, or in this case let's just say a password that you imprinted, that you actually placed on that particular key, it's not going to be valid too. But for me, I just want to keep this empty. And as you can see, it's telling me that I have created this key code. You can see I have a kings underscore key and kings underscore key.pub. Now this particular kings underscore key.pub, that is what I am actually going to be using. That's what I'm actually going to be using this kings underscore key is my private key. That is what I'm actually going to be using into logging as the King's user account. Right now this kings underscore key.pub is what I am going to be placing on that particular user authorized keys. Now if you look at this King's user now, so I'm going to be doing ls to look at sorry, I could just do SSH. Oh sorry, it is SSH, not SSHH. So you can see it's not even locating this particular direction. Now let's say I do ls flag a to see all there, and you can see there is no SSH directory here. So what I'll have to do now is I'll have to create the directory called .ssh. Now once this directory is created, now I would now want to create a file called authorized keys. Now on the authorized keys, I'm going to be placing this public key there. So you're going to see I'll do it. So remember, I'm still logged in as the King's user. So this is what I'll do. Now I'm going to be using the VI editor to do this. So I say authorized keys. Now this is it. I'm going to be pressing enter. Now it has opened the file. Now I will come here. Now I'm going to be cutting out the kings underscore key.pub. So this is the key. So I will just copy it here. Let's copy it to my clipboard now. I go to this particular place and I'll just paste it. Now once it's pasted, I can just save it. Now since it's saved, great, since this is saved now, remember I have copied the public key and pasted this on this particular guy's authorized key. So now I'm going to test this. So how will I test this? So I'm going to go back and then let's see, we do this. I think this is, so let's say I'm going to be using king's key, logging into king's key. So let's see. Great. So you can see now I was able to log in as the king's user. So now I can press exit or press Ctrl D to exit from the king's user. Now you can see I am back to the Ubuntu user. Now since I have been able to successfully log in as the king's user account, I no longer need this default Ubuntu user. As such, to my admin key that came with AWS, I'm still going to keep it so that in case I need to log in as Ubuntu, I can log in. Right? So now if I want to log in back to this particular server, I'm going to be using this. Again, remember this particular guy here, we just enabled it, right? And it's showing that it's running. Now I was also able to connect to this particular server using port 22, right? So let's say I am here now. Now I want to do sudo servers. Now I want to check the SSH status. So you can see it is actually active. Then come in here, enter. Now you can see again, this is my server, sammykingx.com.ng. Now you can see it's active and it's running, right? So press this. Now what I can do now is to restart it. Great. So now it's restarted, so to pick up. Now you can see server listening on port 22 and all that. All right, great. So I think I can log out as this Ubuntu user. Great. So I am back to my system here. So now this is king's user. Now once you've secured this is a basic SSH setting. Again, this is based on the organization you're working in or based on what you want to achieve, right? So now once you've secured your SSH, the next thing I would advise you to do is to set up your server time. This is because if you're going to be running an application, definitely you're going to be putting some timestamps, right? Let's say you want to know the time a user logged in and all that. You want to be using the current time, right? So if you look at this now, so let's say I do time. Let's say I say time. Or let's say I use dates now. So if you look at this now, you can see it is not reading the correct time, right? This is Sunday, but it's not reading the correct time, although it's a 24-hour format, but then it's 1 hour behind because it's reading UTC 0. Now how do you get to correct this? Now if you also want a verbose output, you could do time ctl okay, I think no, sorry, I think it's date time. Yeah, daytime CTO. You gotta be kidding me. Okay, all right, then I think it is going to be date time date CTO. Sometimes I just get to forget this stuff. So time date CTO. So so this is a more verbose output. Now you can look at it, says my time, this is my time zone, right? So now how can you actually change this? Now you can actually change this by actually looking at the available time zones that is on your server. Now mind you, this particular time zone, there are a lot, so you just have there's no how for you to that you can actually move from A to Z in it. So in fact, let's show you how you get to know the time zone. So you use this daytime CTL, and then you use list time zones. Then you see list time zones. Now if you do this, now you can see there's a whole lot. 8 of 34, 9 to 35, rather 12 to 10. There are a whole lot. We are still on America. You can see there are a whole lot. So definitely you can't go from A to Z. So what I would advise that you do is look for the time zone that you want to synchronize your server with. That's just the best thing I could do for you. I would advise rather. But for me, this is what I mostly do. Let's say I want to use Africa Lagos because Lagos, Nigeria. So if you even look, if you scroll up, you actually see Africa Lagos. So we're in America. Let's go back. So you can see Africa Lagos. So this is it. So let's say you've gotten the time zone you want to use. Now what you will now do is to change that to set time zone. So set time zone. Now the way it was stated there, it's Africa Lagos. So you have to enter it the exact way you see it here. Where is it? Great. I think this is it, Africa Lagos, right? So I think I have to now use caps. Now yeah, I know I definitely have to use this, but now the reason why it's showing me this is because I didn't precede this particular command with sudo. Remember I told you sometimes I just forget to do that. So I'll just have to enter in the password for this guy. Okay, it's failed. That's because I entered the wrong password. So I'll just come in here now and do sudo, and now you can see it's done. Now if I come here now, watch, if I come this and I check, now you can see it's saying Africa Lagos. Now it's changed to the correct time. All right, so with that now you now have like a good place from where you could now move forward. All right, people, well done. So we've talked about the UFW, we've talked about SSH, we've talked about the time zone, we've also talked about adding in a user to our Ubuntu server. Now remember, our UFW, we've enabled it, it's active, right? We saw it. Great. So now from here you could now decide to install other third-party security applications that will further harden your Linux server based on what you want. Remember, I try to keep this a little bit simple so that at least even if you don't know how to do much with this, you are at least good to go. Great. You could decide to extend this by installing open source security softwares, probably like Fail2Ban, etc. And with that, you're also good to go. Again, I have not installed any application package yet that is required for my application. So after this you can decide to say, okay, I want to now install the necessary package required for my application to run, and then you can go about doing that. Now after you are through with doing everything, now the last thing you want to do now is to reboot the server. Now this could take 5 minutes, at best 10 minutes. So how do you do that? So you just do sorry. So you just do sudo reboot, and this will automatically log you out from your server. And then once the server is back up running, the UFW is automatically going to be activated. Everything you've done, all of them is going to be activated and all that. So with that, we are good to go. All right, so I'm just going to be doing a reboot to see what happens. And now you can see connection to this closer because the server is rebooting, so it has to drop all connection. All right, so once the server is back up, you could go back again to log in. With that said, see you guys later.